dissection of the Blues to a close, we'll start the Hash Rugby chat. And I just realised I kind of haven't changed the title on the screen. So it says for your ears only, and the reason it says that is because I have been recording two pieces exclusively for my supporters on Patreon. So if you'd like to get hold of those, one of them is looking at should sports people be role models, and the other one is looking at is the Premiership sustainable. So link down below to patreon.com/DrivingMaul. Go check that out. Those videos will be up there soon. So good evening, welcome, and joining me this evening I have the one, the only, the white t-shirted Arswin. How you doing, sir?
Angry, still getting over it.
Angry still, because hey, like the new t-shirt.
Oh yeah. It was good. Hey, sure. I'll tell them the story that I gave you. It's just like, because it's like the worm turning, right? So it's just like I was digging through my old through the wardrobe, the old walk-in wardrobe, and there's a dark, deep corner.
Hang on, stop. The old walk-in wardrobe. Oh, the yes.
The old walk-in wardrobe.
We're salt of the earth. We are.
Yeah, just next to the ensuite with the spa bath in there. But anyway,
see, spa bath shows new money, not old money.
So, and this is like, oh, what should I wear tonight? Oh, what should I wear tonight? I have got nothing to wear, and this is like, oh, I got an old Blues jersey, and then it's like this. Oh, hey, what's this T-shirt? And I put it on anyway. It was like, oh, cool, and it actually happens to be a celebration of 125 years of Auckland rugby. I don't know if that's...
So stand up a bit.
Come and stand up. There's that.
There we go. Lovely. Yeah. Yep.
125 years of Auckland rugby that I found in the wardrobe that I didn't even know I had. So I'm wearing this, and I get into the old laptop, getting ready to find out what we're talking about tonight. And my wife wanders in and goes, "Oh, did you buy a new T-shirt?" And I said, "What? This old thing? No, I've had it forever." Yeah. As I said,
so there we are. We can tell it's basically they've worn it because it's got no holes in it, and it's 10 years old. 2008 apparently. So there we go.
83 to 2008.
Yeah, that's what it says on the T-shirt. Good evening, Steve. Stephen, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Once again, privilege and a pleasure to be on the TDM. Yeah, interesting. Some real interesting rugby over the weekend. I've got to say, a couple of great local derbies we saw, but and also some interesting results. You're kind of wondering what's going on in South Africa, with one team putting 50 on one team another week, and then the likes of the Sharks getting 50 stuck on them. So yeah, weird things happening in the Oval Ball Code.
South Africa, the South African teams are an absolute picker's nightmare this year. You have teams like the Sharks who capitulated in a game that they should have, you expect them to do well in. You have the Stormers rest their captain and somehow win a game that you'd think they'd lose. Then you can't even go counterintuitive, because then the Bulls go and do exactly what you expect them to do, as did the Lions. So you're totally flummoxed, because you don't know which one's going to be the upset, or which one's going to flick heads and which one's going to flick tails. They're an absolute basket case this year.
Love that word, flummoxed. I actually think you're going to have to do a show with, is it John Connor? Is it that's the South African expert?
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to have to do a show with them, just basically on the South African conference, because that this year that is a doozy.
It is. Talking of South Africa, they're talking of sending up the Pumas and the Griquas to join the Pro14. So are you boys aware of who the Pumas and the Griquas are?
Yep.
Sort of.
Griqualand West.
The
South African Pumas are from Argentina.
Right, no.
No. What?
No.
What, really? I've been reading all these things, and I thought they were from Argentina. Oh, dear. I might as well sign off and go home.
Oh, dear, no. The Pumas are a province in South Africa, as are the Griquas. The Pumas, I think, originally were part of the whole Cats group with the Cheetahs and the Lions, weren't they? Anyway, and the Griquas are in East from East South Africa anyway. Currently, they're both in the Premiership of the Currie Cup, there's talk of them going up. Apparently, Ireland have said no. Only Super Rugby sides can come up, so we'll see how that pans out. But I thought it was kind of interesting to see how South Africa were suggesting that they went down the conference route, because I thought this was basically walking into one of the big problems we've had with Super Rugby. So far, the Pro14 has split each country in half to create two relatively even conferences. The new suggestion is to have 4 conferences of 4 teams from Ireland, 4 teams from Wales, 4 teams from South Africa, i.e. the Griquas, Pumas, Kings and Cheetahs, and then the final one is 2 teams from Scotland and Italy making up a group of 4. Now, the problem with Super Rugby conferences is that the New Zealand are too good and it's unbalanced. The problem I can see with this setup is that Ireland would be too good and it would be totally unbalanced. So to me, this seems a bit crazy. Any thoughts, boys, or not?
Yeah, it's getting a little bit out of hand, isn't it? Once again, obviously, I can only assume that money is the motivation. I was watching a game. I think it was the Cheetahs and I think they were playing maybe
Ospreys this weekend,
or one of those teams. It was Ospreys. Obviously, it was Ospreys. And to be honest, the standard of the rugby was, I got to say, it was pretty downright average. And I was thinking to myself, how would these two teams fare if they were playing Super Rugby? And quite frankly, I think they'd both get cracked by 50 by some of the better South African teams. Seriously, I didn't think they were that good. If you think back to Orange Free State, they were, to be honest, I actually think the current Sunwolves have probably got more ticker about them than what the Free State Cheetahs did when they were part of Super Rugby.
Yeah, actually, I think the Cheetahs do go up north and get 40 points put on them by Leinster and Munster, 40 or 50 points. So, I mean, that happens to them, as does Ospreys. And that's why I think this whole setup would be a farce, because basically only one Welsh team can still make the playoffs. All 4 Irish teams have qualified. The two South Africa teams haven't got a hope of getting anywhere near qualification. And then one Italian side and one Scottish side are going to make it. So you're kind of looking at it like saying, yeah, this. If you were to take the top 2 out of each of those groups, you'd leave 2 of the best teams behind, and and you'd end up with some really weak teams in that final 8. Yeah, Simon says if they do the Pro 16, they should split into 2 conferences of 9. You mean 2 conferences of 8, obviously. And yeah, I think following the model they've got now, which is you take 2 Irish teams in each conference, 2 Welsh teams in each conference, that all kind of makes sense. So yeah, I think messing around like this would be a bit of a farce.
Paul, for some reason unknown to man, one night I decided to watch half of the Newport Dragons versus the Southern Kings game in South Africa, which,
oh my word,
ironically,
I'm amazed you're still alive. You didn't manage to sort of slit your wrists off watching that one.
Well, it was played in front of a ground that was probably no more than a club ground, and I doubt whether it had 1,000 people there. And quite frankly, the skill was just really diabolical. And I'd back most Mitre 10 Cup sides in New Zealand to have knocked over both of those sides. The skill level was so poor.
So yeah, it was. So there you go. I've got nothing wrong with them putting another 2 teams up there if they want to, but I think the way that they're going about it is really poor. Anyway,
I think we've talked about this previously. What we as I said, money apart, where is the benefit for those Northern Hemisphere teams and expanding? There really isn't. As I said, flying around Europe in their part of the world for that Pro 14 competition, nice and easy, right? Flying down to South Africa, although it's in the same time zone, is I don't know how many hours. We're looking at about 10 hours.
I think Ashwin, one of the things they're probably looking at, it technically keeps a lot of South African players in South Africa, guys that they can select for, that they can select from. That's
no, but that's what I'm saying, right? That's what I'm saying. The benefits are all from South African teams.
Yeah, they are.
There's no benefit for the Northern Hemisphere teams. So, I mean, apart from money possibly from them from extra revenue or whatever, other than that, there really isn't any incentive for the Northern Hemisphere teams to get excited about an expansion, including more South Africans.
And especially if they're including teams like the Sharks, the Bulls,
Sure.
the Lions, you can get it. You can see that's exciting. You're bringing quality teams up, whereas you're bringing the Griquas and the Pumas up. You're bringing up teams that are substandard they're below the Cheetahs level, really.
But how's the Pro 14 rate as competition in the Northern Hemisphere? I mean, is it a well attended, well followed competition?
Not really. It comes very much down to who you're talking about. Teams like Leinster and Munster get good crowds and get are well attended, whereas teams like the Dragons aren't. So it's a when you think that two out of the four semi-finalists in the European Champions Cup come from the Pro 14. So the top of the Pro 14 is very good. The problem is the bottom of the Pro 14 is very, very bad. Whereas you look at the kind of the difference between the top and the bottom of the Premiership is not as far. The top of the Premiership probably isn't quite at the top of the Pro 14, but the bottom is nowhere near the bottom of the Pro 14. So it's one of those problems they've got. Simon says he'd prefer a Georgian team and maybe a German team. I would suggest Georgian and maybe Spanish. I think Spain's in a better position than Germany going forwards. But I get I agree that expansion into those tier 2 European countries is much more viable, again, because of the travel time, basically.
You almost wonder if Andy Marinos is helping out and he's got some sort of strategic plan involved with this Pro 14 or whatever it is. You'd hate to think he's, but I think what they have to do in all seriousness is take some lessons out of what Super Rugby did badly by extending the competition out to so many teams, and then they just basically watered it down, and now they're virtually going back the other way.
Well, it was also the fact it was unbalanced as well.
Well, hence my question to sort of Paul in terms of how's the competition perceived up there, because the fact is that although obviously attendance in the poorly performed teams isn't great, if the competition itself is seen as being a good competition, why would you want to touch it? You've got that sort of expose of Super Rugby and how it's sort of expanded and exploded with egg all over its face. So why would they want to go down that path of expansion and getting to a Pro 18 and having separate conferences with different numbers of teams in it?
Yeah, the problem it is financially the weakest of the three leagues up there, well behind the France is top, then it's England, and then the Pro 14 comes some way behind. So yeah, financially it is the weakest of the three, and it does need to change and try and improve and do that. The question is how you go about it, and I think this is that structure that's been suggested is the wrong way. And I think, as has been said there, that actually, European and short haul flights are much more the way forwards. Coming long haul flight back to New Zealand, we have got Rugby World Cup coverage news, guys. Are you so you'll be able to watch all the Rugby World Cup games live on Spark Sports for $60. That's not a bad price, is it? Really?
Yeah, but 60, but 59, well, 59.95, $60. If you sign
fine,
now,
I'll give you the cents, okay? I mean, geez, come on.
Yeah.
if you wait until Rugby World Cup starts, it's going to cost you $90. Yeah, I suppose it's just a little bit of suspicion. I listened to a chappie on the radio today talking about when they ran the Grand Prix. Apparently there were issues with that. It was stalling and whatnot. it's something that concerns me. Anything online when you've got a whole lot of people wanting to watch something, and in a country of our size, it does concern me a little bit.
In terms of the
it's still early days for them, but they need to up their game. So from what I understand, I've not watched it, but I was talking to Michael Pullman today, who has been watching it, and he says that they've had issues every weekend as soon as there's a live event. So yeah, there's work to be done on that side of things. I think from a costing point of view, though, I think they've got it about the right kind of level. Seems about right to me. Doesn't seem excessive. So the
I went through today, and I was looking at it, and so again, obviously we're looking from a New Zealand perspective here. Well, I mean, it's back, and so it is obviously a New Zealand perspective. But so all the New Zealand games pool-wise will be delayed by an hour, so they won't be live on free to air.
Okay, sorry. Let's step back because we've got a lot of international listeners or viewers who won't understand what's on here. So Spark Sport will be providing all the games live, and that's a streaming service. They've partnered up with TVNZ, which is free to air, which has got 12 games, and I'll give you back to Arswin.
Yes. So the three pool games that the All Blacks will be in will be delayed by an hour, and then you look at the games that they are broadcasting live, and you sort of think, oh, okay. And then they'll be broadcasting the semi-finals and the final live. I can't remember actually. Hang on, one moment. I'll just check something because I did actually take a screenshot of. Sorry, one moment, please, callers.
Okay, so I've got the picture here. So yes, so they'll be showing one quarterfinal delayed by an hour.
Yep.
And which will be the New Zealand one, on the assumption that New Zealand make it through to the quarterfinals. And then they're showing both semi-finals and the final live.
Final, yep. So basically, based on that, you sort of think, depending on how serious a rugby follower you are, you don't really want to watch an All Blacks game, especially the first one, New Zealand South Africa, delayed by an hour. So you're going to pay the $60. So then you start to swing towards the $60. If they were live, just watch them free to air on TVNZ, not worry about the pool games. And then you start to think about games like Fiji Australia, which you sort of be quite keen to watch. Actually, any game that Fiji is going to be involved in, because we're sort of expecting Fiji to perform quite well at this Rugby World Cup. So there's a few matchups that we're looking at that you'll miss out on. And then you start looking at that and you sort of think, $60 is not bad price to pay. Because is it a 4-week competition or a 6-week, Paul?
6, I think. 6 or 7.
So $60 anyway. Over a month and a half.
Well,
I thought it was 6 weeks.
20th of September is the opening game, and the 2nd of November is the last game.
Oh, yep, yep. So you're looking at roughly 6-7 weeks. Yeah.
So $60. I've actually got the picture up. I actually got the picture up of the of the free-to-air games. So Japan Russia, the opening game, you can understand why that was free-to-air, because it had the opening ceremony and all that kind of stuff. As you say, in the same way that Sky Sports does with Prime, the New Zealand pool games, all 4 of them are going to be delayed by an hour, which is understandable. And then I thought TVNZ have got a pretty raw deal when it comes to the games they've been given. Argentina-Tonga doesn't strike me as being a particularly big game out of Pool C, to be honest.
No.
You're going to want Argentina-France out of that one. The problem is I think that's on the same day as New Zealand-South Africa is. You then come down, you go, South Africa-Italy. Yep. I understand they've probably allowed one game from Pool B and they're not going to get New Zealand-South Africa. But again, South Africa-Italy isn't going to be isn't going to be a great game. I wouldn't have thought. And then Wednesday, and then for Pool D, they get Wales versus Fiji. So again, they miss the either Australia-Wales or the Australia-Fiji game. I think TVNZ have got some pretty poor games when it comes to... Now, maybe because of the way that it falls on the weekends, they want to have one each. They want only want weekend games. Maybe that's why they've ended up with what they've got. But it's not very inspiring, is it? On the free-to-air games.
No. So you're going to go for the $60, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You do. Yeah. I was about to say, you do feel for a lot of people out in the rural areas who haven't got fibre or can't basically you can't get access to this. You know,
mate, I'm not in a rural area, and I haven't got fibre, so I'm very interested to see what happens. But look, because of my background, I can also look. The interesting thing is that Spark could get their ducks in a row. Spark could get all the infrastructure correct. The problem that they're going to have is the UFB installation, which is the fibre rollout program that New Zealand has rolled out for our international viewers. UFB, ultra fast broadband. I've got a bit of inside knowledge on that, and I've seen the workmanship, and I know the quality of the workmanship. Now, not in the core, let's call it, and but when it gets to the last mile back to the house, these guys have been trained up in 2 weeks and asked to go out and install fibre to a house, and some of them 2 days. So what I suspect is that even if Spark gets their ducks in a row, what they've got to use is the fibre broadband network, which is not owned by Spark. Okay, so let's be clear about this. Spark will have the head-end equipment, let's call it the servers, that when the network switches and everything, that will capture the images and then spit it out on all this fibre that then sends it off out to your house. That fibre that sends it out to the house is not owned by Spark. It's owned by a company in New Zealand called Chorus.
Well, it depends where. Hang on. Depends where in New Zealand. It's owned by.
Simplistically speaking, because 90% of the rollout was Chorus. So you've got your well networks here in Enable and Christchurch, etc. Let's not go into Enable and Christchurch anyway. But basically, about 90% or somewhere around that figure is Chorus. So for sake of so you're going to have problems where you're going to have problems with that fibre network, and that's where people are going to have issues.
You are. I think you're also going to have problems where every single house in the street wants to do it, and then at the exchange they haven't got enough bandwidth either.
Look, they should be able to. You're right, Paul. You're right. But after some pain that they went through early days and how they set up the network, I believe that going forward that shouldn't be an issue. No guarantees. Okay. But there's a thing called a split ratio. I won't get too technical, but basically they went from 1/64 to 1/16. So
I was chatting with somebody. I was chatting with somebody at the last week, and funnily enough, when all the kids get home from school and start playing online games, their internet slows down. So maybe it's coincidence that it happens at 3:30 every afternoon. Maybe it's not. Anyway. Yeah. It's not. Let's be honest. It's not all in Spark's control. Is what we're basically saying. And Simon, for balance, says that he hasn't had any issues with Spark Sports. That's great to hear. So maybe it is just a Hamilton thing. So anyway, it's interesting to see what we'll see coming out of that.
I'll just
the balance.
Sorry, I'll just add. He says maybe it's just a Hamilton thing. You were talking about how it's not just Chorus, and I said it's 90% Chorus. Well, in Hamilton, it's a company called Well Networks. Yes. So yeah, exactly. So that could be definitely an issue there. It's someone else. Yep.
So I don't want to put all the blame on Chorus, and especially as they, you never know, Chorus might want to sponsor us one day. So basically, I think the summary is that decent price, some dodgy games that TVNZ have got, unfortunately. Some good news coming out of the USA. Steve, what are you doing? Because you're making an awful lot of noise down the line.
I've had an accident.
Oops. Okay.
My daughter had that a couple of nights ago.
That was
glass of water, bottle of water gone everywhere. That's okay.
Honest governor, it's water. Anyway, some good news coming out of the USA, where we've got the Major League Rugby and USA Rugby have signed an agreement document of some form or other, which basically means that Major League Rugby is now sanctioned because of the whole politics around pro rugby, etc. Major League Rugby started off without being sanctioned, but they've always had a working relationship with USA Rugby. So good to see that formalised over there. There's also, they've announced that they are going to turn to a conference system and expansion teams. I can't remember whether we discussed this the other week or so, but that's now been formally announced, and I'll be doing a special video with a broadcaster out the USA about that. So become a supporter, and you'll see that hopefully in the next week or two. Now, Kiora Crazy NZ, how are you doing? Now, the one of the things we were discussing before we came on the show was basically coaching by referees rather than actually making the call. And one of the things that has been removed from rugby is the whole self-policing side of things. We've got rid of rucking, we've got rid of punches for players that are doing silly things like holding players back, etc. And now it's all on the referee. So, do you think that's really has that led to more of this kind of I guess problems that fans have with referees? The fact that there isn't any self-policing anymore to stop some of the niggly behaviour happening. Do you think?
Oh, look, it's a frustrating one. I think I'm sure we've spoken about this before. We believe that the referees shouldn't be coaches on the field. They should just be penalising them. I mean, the kickback you sort of get from people is that, they'll be blowing a penalty every 2 minutes. Well, yeah, maybe for 2 or 3 games until the players realise that they're not going to be somebody on their field changing their nappy, and they have to do it themselves. And then they will change their behaviour. And, before we went on air, Steve and I obviously getting rather sort of heated in agreement on the fact that, referees warning players. Oh, yeah, and now you're good. Well, that's too late. It shouldn't be any warnings. It should be slowing the ball down, penalty. It's not like you're slowing the ball down, get your hands off. It's
even more so, just to give you a bit of an analogy, we saw situations where, like, we'll take the Blues Chiefs game where Brodie Retallick, now it was from a defensive situation. The Blues were actually on defence. Brodie Retallick was off his feet. He was on his knees, and you could clearly see the hands on the ball. To me, that's an infraction straight away. Anybody on the ground, you're out of the game. Now, if you want to use a similar sort of analogy, it's a little bit like when a defensive player is made and a guy is falling down, and as he goes to ground, basically the defender rips the ball before it hits the ground. It's an immediate penalty because you've ripped it. Even though the player has gone down on one knee, technically it's on the ground. Release.
Yep, he's down. Release,
and it's an infraction straight away. So
yep.
It was frustrating.
Look, I mean, let's not. I don't think we need to target a game in particular. I think it's simple. As the fact is that, we want to see the referees referee the game, not coach the game. We want to see them penalise infractions. If we have to sit through 2, 3, half a season of games where there's penalties every 2 minutes, so be it. Let the players learn that they're going to get penalised. At the moment, they don't. They know that they can slow the ball down. That allows them to get their defensive line set, because the referee is going to say, "Hang on, do you know the laws? Oh, well, you're not allowed to actually go down on the ground and then curl yourself up around the ball. You have to roll away. So can you do that, please? Oh, now look, halfback can come in and play the ball now."
Okay, all right.
Something. I was going to say, Paul, something that teams are doing it, and it's quite a sneaky thing to do, and a lot of it is sometimes quite cynical, is when a player's under advantage and then a second infraction occurs where they know, the other team knows that it's under advantage, so it stops any sort of momentum dead. And on a lot of occasions, usually that second fence is sometimes more cynical than the first fence. Usually you're playing advantage for offside, and then you get a player who just totally goes off his feet and just kills that situation, or enters in a ruck, because you immediately kill any sort of momentum, and it's something that's sneaking in.
Okay, so proposed law change then. When under advantage, within the first 2 phases under advantage, if you infringe another penalty, it's an automatic yellow card.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. Another one that I've had that people have said no to in the past, but I want to throw out there yet again.
You're gonna float it again.
I want to float it again. Yeah. Let's keep trying it. I'm going to be Theresa May and keep putting it out there for vote until people are so bored they say yes. But the first one
Banes it.
Banes it. So the Crusaders game, I think it was this weekend, where they got warned, and then they went another 5 or 6 penalties, and then they got warned again, and then 1 minute before full time they got a yellow card after giving up 19 penalties, I think it was. So I want to float out the idea again. Every 5th yellow card is an automatic yellow. Every 5th yellow card. Every 5th penalty is an automatic yellow card for repeat infringement. What do you say, sirs?
I'm inclined to say yes, but I suppose the issue was the fact is that you can get genuinely accidental penalties, if you know what I mean. But then in saying that, yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, I think generally speaking that accidental penalties, which are penalties, aren't going to happen as often. So you probably better off going that way than sticking with what we've got. I mean, that was just you're pinching my tweet from that game anyway, because aren't you? You're pinching my tweet because I put in there. There's about 15 minutes to go. The Crusaders have been penalised the heck out of him, and I said, yeah, it'll be a minute left in the game and they'll get a yellow card. And from that 15th minute, which they'd already received a truckload of penalties, they carried on getting penalty after penalty. And as Paul alluded to, 1 minute to go in the game and they got a yellow card. And it's just like, talking of, I think, Steve, we were obviously unhappy with some of the officiating in the Blues Tuesday. Actually, to tell you the truth, I actually think the officiating in the Crusaders Highlanders game was very poor. There were elements that basically there were tries created because of poor refereeing for the Crusaders, and they got the momentum, and the Highlanders got blown away out.
Here's a question for both of you. Do you think it's a case sometimes of really good sides?
Oh, absolutely. I know where you're going. Experienced Brodie Retallick, what you alluded to, Brodie. It's players, it's teams, and I don't get it. It's just like, how can a referee go into a game thinking, oh, these guys are really good, so I'm not going to penalise them?
Let's touch on McCaw. I used to think some of the penalties McCaw used to give away bordered on cynical.
Well, that
what do you mean bordered on cynical?
They were cynical.
No. He knows. He pushes it. He pushed it to the edge, but there are a lot of occasions. Man alive, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Exactly what he's doing. I was like, and that's why I love sitting with the people I sit with in the West End at Eden Park, because although we're All Blacks fans, although we're Blues fans, although we're Auckland fans, we generally call it as we see it, and in terms of, oh, that's for our own team. Ooh, that was a bit dodgy, wasn't it? I don't think Richie could have going into that angle.
As Nigel Owens once said that he was I think it was Lawrence Danalio. He was refereeing at the time, and Lawrence went, "Oh, sorry." He spots that Lawrence gets on the wrong side, blows it up, and Lawrence says, "Yep, sorry, I fell over. Sorry, accident." And what was a yellow card? He went, "Okay, it was an accident. Go and give the yellow card." And he got told afterwards that was a yellow card. It wasn't accidental. And he says, "Yeah, players don't do accidental things anymore." So.
I think it comes back to what we, with your 5 yellow cards, Paul. And I mentioned there are accidents that happen as penalties. Well, it's like, well, that's tough. At the end of the day, you've still given away a penalty that stopped the team possibly scoring or getting an advantage by going down the field. So it's a penalty. It's a penalty, whether it's accidental or not. So taking that Lawrence Dallaglio scenario, it's just like, even if he said it's accidental, well, sorry, you stopped the attacking team from advancing, so it's yellow card.
I'd be sort of quite curious to see some stats in terms of when cards are actually handed out, because we very rarely see cards get dished out in the first 10, 15 minutes, unless it's for foul play, something like that, or maybe a deliberate sort of knockdown. But in most cases, we don't really see the yellow cards sort of come out until either late in the first half or into the second half.
I can't remember. I can't remember if it was the Blues Chiefs game or was it another game I watched. I know that it was the prop, so that's why I was sort of thinking whether it was Angus Torval that kept going down, and the ref actually said to the prop, "Next time you go down, it's a yellow card," and then the prop never went down. So I think it might be the game. That it was actually because Angus Torval gave away like about 3 or 4 penalties.
What he was dropping the arm. Yeah. So instead of keeping the arm straight, the arm basically was going down. And that's usually why they do that is because it's perceived as you're trying to pull the other guy down.
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, he's doing it because he's going backwards and therefore he's collapsing it. Anyway,
my nephew used to prop told me that.
when he told he was going to get a yellow card, he stopped doing it, and there wasn't like the Blues got a massive ascendancy in the scrum when he stopped doing it. So that was rather interesting. But it's just like, yeah.
Anyway, it's time for a halftime break. And this halftime break is brought to you by DrivingMaul. So please, the best thing you can do is to let one of your mates in real life. Don't bother sharing this on social media and all that kind of rubbish. Actually, just tell one of your mates in real life, hey, why don't you watch the show? I enjoy it as well. So pass the word, let one of your mates know, please, and that'd be much appreciated. And that's your halftime message from the DrivingMaul. So, Mickey Mouse moments of the week, boys. Do you have a Mickey Mouse moment of the week, Stephen?
Probably for me, we all know what a wonderful player he can be when he's good. But Quade Cooper's performance for the Rebels against the Stormers just had an absolute shocker on Friday night, and everything that he tried basically went AWOL. And sometimes players have that, but some of them were so comical. Even Quade was left shaking his head at times.
He did get a couple of unlucky bounces of the ball, though. I remember I did see one of them live, and it's just like a kick through, and it's just like I think there was a deflection off a Rebels player, so it fell short of Quade Cooper coming forward, and then he got the most horrible of bounces away from him, went straight to a Stormers player.
And that,
on hindsight, you'd say, oh, he should have slid into it to catch the ball. But it's just like, oh, you're running towards it, and all of a sudden, it's, I'm not going to make it type scenario.
No question. He's a hell of a skillful player, but it just seemed on Friday night, everything that he tried just didn't come off. And, the look from that particular incident was priceless.
Hey, look, since I know we're talking Mickey Mouse moments of the week, but because you brought up Quade Cooper, what does he, from not obviously from Chicka's viewpoint, he's not good enough, but from your point of view, is he good enough to play in the Canary Yellow?
Well, I think what we've got to say now is, last season he wasn't playing Super Rugby, so you can't select a guy who's playing club rugby into an international team, to be honest.
Yep.
So
for this year.
For this year, though, you look around and go, well, Foley, I understand that, he'll go with Foley because that's the guy with the runs on the board. But who else is there? There's just no one else. So he has to go with him, surely.
Christian
Leali'ifano
is probably an option as well. I mean, say steady sort of footballer. And I suppose Quade, those are probably the three I would imagine that come to mind. Reece Hodge at a drop could probably drop in. But yeah, he's got the skill set though. He could drop into.
But we've seen him for a couple of seasons, Steve, and he's just. I don't think. I mean, he's steady at Super Rugby level, so you wouldn't chuck him in at international level, No, he's really only just steady, I would say too.
But you could have him as a third choice in the Wallabies to play at the Tier 2 games at the Rugby World Cup, for example.
Which you got, yeah. But I just sort of think, in terms of
because
Yep.
you wouldn't want your one of your key playmakers to get injured in one of the meaningless pool games. I'm not too sure who Australia have got in their pool, but if they've got one of the
I don't think they've got meaningless game.
Yeah. If they can, no, they're not meaningless game, and I mean that with respect. But if there's a lesser opposition, you could play him against or off the bench, give him 20 minutes. I suppose he's probably the guy you'd maybe slot in, I guess, to that particular position. Yeah. Interestingly enough, and we'll talk tomorrow night, it's probably an interesting situation that the All Blacks are going to have moving forward, but we'll save that for tomorrow night.
Yes, we will. We will save that one for tomorrow night. So Australia have obviously got Wales and Fiji, which they will be needing to have their top team against. But Georgia and Uruguay, you think they would be able to see off with a Hodge at 10, for example?
Yeah.
Just in terms of like with Foley and Lele Afane, you got two players that are pretty much similar in the way that they operate. Steady operators, do the percentage plays and that. Don't you want to mix it up by having someone like a Cooper that does something different, that is inventive?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it, isn't there? There is either we have our systems and I want a like-for-like replacement, or you say, okay, we want the ability to have different options within the squad. At this stage, I think I'd be going for, we're in trouble. Let's just try and get game plan A working. Plan B and C would be nice to have, but let's just try and get plan A working.
Good point.
Because a lot of the time, if you look at how the All Blacks, when you see someone else drop into the All Blacks, we're not saying, oh, we're bringing in someone who plays totally differently. They both have the core. Whether you play Crotty or Sonny Bill Williams at 12, they both can take it up to the game line. They can both tackle hard. Now Crotty's got a bit. Crotty's not known for his kicking, but I think it's a bit better than Sonny Bill Williams. But then again, Sonny Bill's got a slightly better offload, or a much better offload. So you're talking about core sets that are the same with a few changes around the sides. So this idea of bringing in players who play totally differently, you've only got so much time on the training paddock.
You don't think that Beauden Barrett plays quite differently to Richie Mo'unga?
I
Direct
think
versus sideways?
Well, but then again, it was Beauden Barrett and Damon McKenzie, wasn't it? Both who were happy to run sideways.
But at the end of last year, it was more first five. It was starting to become Mo'unga and Barrett swapping, isn't it? Halfway through the game, or towards the end of the game.
I'll tell you what, guys. We can save this for tomorrow night. The All Blacks edition.
You're quite right there. I thought a nice Mickey Mouse moment of the weekend was the Stormers kick from halfway that bounced on the crossbar and bounced over. I quite like that one. That brought a smile to my face.
Good. That was a good kick. That was a very good kick.
Any others, Ashwin?
Oh, look, for me, which will sort of, as Steve alluded to, will sort of stretch into tomorrow's show, but the scenario with that Damien McKenzie, and you actually look at it and how he did it, it's a nothing situation. And it looks like he's clipped his leg or knee as he's just flowing past type thing. And yeah, it was just a bizarre situation. So not maybe necessarily Mickey Mouse, but definitely bizarre. And the outcome of it's horrendous. But we'll talk about that.
And also, he didn't go off in like total agony, where you see players go off in total agony, you go, "Ooh, that's going to be a while." He went off and everyone's like, "Okay, is he going to be out for a week, or is he going to be out for 2 weeks?" Oh shit, he's out for the rest of the year.
You do a Chris Farley. Ooh, that's good.
So yeah, you did, mind you, you did see that real glimpse when he actually tried to put some grimace, I should say, when he actually tried to put some weight on it.
Yeah.
So my other Mickey Mouse moment of the week was, Houston Sabercats moved into their new stadium, which is fantastic. Congratulations. They built the stadium from scratch and have moved into it within a year and a half, even though the place was flooded by a bayou, which put them back a year in their planning process. But
flooded by what?
Oh, the bayou that they're next to flooded, and so hence their
it's flowed.
Overflowed. Yep. Unfortunately, they didn't get the grass long enough to bed in, and they had to turn to uncontested scrums after about 10 minutes. So a bit of a shame that they've had to open their stadium that way. I'm sure it will be it'll improve, and it'll be fine in future. But yeah, a bit of a Mickey Mouse moment there. They had to go to uncontested scrums.
Turfs generally take about a year to grow long enough roots to bed in properly. Now, I remember that from Millennium Stadium, because when Millennium Stadium first opened, there was massive problems with the field. Not getting enough sunlight on the field for the grass to grow, but also for the grass to root into the sand soil base that they had, and so the ground just used to get totally rooted.
Yeah, there are ways around this. I mean, it's sort of the hybrid Desio pitch style thing where they weave in a plastic weave around the grass. That can help, and that means you can go pretty much straight away. And it takes a few months to lay. It takes a while to lay, to strip it. So it's often done in the off season. You wouldn't probably not be able to do it between now and their next game. But yeah, so
that's
the other option.
That's what they have down at the Tupperware container, officially known as Forsyth Bar.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. They've got a plastic weave in the and grass and into it. Yes, obviously, I'm not sure the percentage, etc.
It's what you have. It's what they've got at Twickenham. It's what they've got in about 4 or 5 of the Premiership grounds now. It's pretty standard. Come on, Stephen. Why are you laughing there? What are you watching on your phone?
No. I'm just at the top. I'm just
Tupperware container.
Tupperware container.
Well, you got the cake tin, so you bake the cake in the cake tin, and then you take it down the Tupperware container and store it there.
Good grief. Good grief.
Have you not heard that before?
No, I've not heard that before. Not at all.
Yeah.
Oh, dearie. Well, that's our Mickey Mouse moments of the week. Super Rugby then, boys. I thought Matera's break and then that chip was pretty impressive for the Jaguares at the weekend.
I didn't see it.
It was majestic. Well, it was a 40-odd metres out, and then he showed the rest of the Lions outside backs a good clean pair of heels. It was a superb try.
Players like him and Artie Surveyor, basically, 3-4 years ago, these guys just didn't exist. This style of back rowers, it was impressive. Now, I've noticed my battery's going a bit low, boys. So if you would like to carry the conversation while I go get my charger, that'd be handy.
I was just going to say, Paul saying that these sort of players didn't exist. The greatest number 8 that the All Blacks have ever had, he used to do that sort of stuff. One Zinzan Valentine.
Oh yeah, that guy. That guy. It's pretty handy. You got that in pretty quickly, I got to say.
Yeah.
And listen, just talking about that Jaguares game, 51-17 against the Sharks, who the previous week put a massive score on the Lions. What is going on? And at home, if you recall, the Lions were beaten by in round 8. If we think back to that score line, 42-5. That's the Lions getting beaten at home. Move it forward 1 week, and then the Sharks get beaten 51-17 by the Jaguares. And having seen a few highlights of the tries, there's some really, really good tries in that Jaguares game.
The thing is that when we talk about all the games and the form reversals from week to week, the teams that do that's good rugby that's still going on. Obviously, one team's basically just not turning up, and it's funny how we just previous section Mickey Mouse moments of the week. It's almost like it's not of the week. It's sort of the conference type scenarios. Wait, it just turns on its head like that.
Just on the Jaguares, we all thought when maybe they would struggle a little bit without Nicolas Sanchez at first 5, obviously playing over in Europe, but Miotti has just slotted in there seamlessly and looks a real tidy player, and looks like he might be a bit of an understudy for the Pumas at this year's World Cup. You think?
Oh, absolutely. I yes, you're right. I was totally on board with this idea that basically with Sanchez gone, they were in serious trouble. But no, you've got to say he's come in and played very, very well in that role. And yeah, he should be going to a World Cup for Los Pumas.
Oh, they're playing some good code as well. Orlando picked up a hat trick in that game as well, and we know what a quality finisher he is as well. And the Jaguares onwards and upwards. And if you look at the table, they're sitting top of the South African Conference at the moment. Paul, in 7th place. Is that correct? No, second place. Second place. I think. Bulls are on 20. Bulls are on 23rd. So
Bulls 23, Sharks 21, Jaguares 19. So I was just going to say.
No, they're looking pretty good for a semi-final place.
Okay.
Just staying in.
Just throw a couple of things in there. Just to stay on the show, I just want to have a quick chat about the Sharks first. Talking with John at the weekend on Friday night at when I was doing the show at the Zone Sports Bar in Sky City, whereas you'll be able to get myself and Stephen down there not this Saturday but next Saturday. So do come down and watch the Chiefs away game. I've gone blank as to what it is, but anyway, we'll come join the watch party down there if you're in Hamilton. So he was saying that basically he thinks the Sharks are probably the most talented team aside from the Crusaders in Super Rugby, but the worst coached team in Super Rugby. And I think we saw some of that at the weekend, or very poorly coached team anyway. So maybe not worst. Worst is perhaps a bit harsh. But I think we saw some of that at the weekend. Is that their defence? They didn't trust the man inside and outside of them, which caused some of the breaks. They got disconnected in defence. You can see big holes that the Jaguares ran straight through. So on attack, they can be lethal because they've got skills. On defence, where you need organisation, they can be woeful. When it goes wrong, it goes very, very wrong because the coaching is so bad. And I think that's what we saw between them beating the Lions, where it's all on the front foot, to them against Jaguares, where on the back foot, and they fell apart. You got to remember, against the Lions, they had like 3 opportunities in the first 20 minutes that they butchered. They should have won that game by 80 points, not by 40, like they did. Sorry, my little rant's over now.
I was going to say, speaking of the Lions, are they just showing? I know Christian, one of our viewers, sent out a tweet that they were, that they're struggling at the moment, and I pretty much replied, I think they've just lost so much personnel over the last couple of seasons. Mostad, guys like that. The son of the coach, who was the former coach that was coaching. He's coaching up in Gloucester at the moment. Ackerman. His son playing. You also got the boy Quagga Smith as well. He's moved on. There's a couple of other players that don't come to mind. They've still got
Faf de Klerk is another one.
Yeah. Faf de Klerk is another one. They've lost a lot of quality, and I think it's just starting to bite. And I don't think it's going to get any easier with their trip to New Zealand.
No, same. I've got to agree with you there. They've just lost too much quality, and they're not able to do it. Also, now my dark horse for topping the South Africa Conference is the Stormers. We've played 8 games. They've only played 2 games at home, and they've won both of those so far this season. They've played 6 away games, 2 at home. They've got 6 home games to come. So I think the Stormers could be the dark horse for that Africa Conference because of that 6. Because they've got so many home games to come. Their tours out the way. They could.
Paul Game, eh? Paul's Game making a prediction on the African Conference.
What?
I think.
Oh, absolutely.
The reason I'm saying your Game making a call on the African Conference because it's like nothing's, even home teams are even losing home games by big margins.
They are, but okay. I said the Stormers have won both their home games. They've only had 2 so far this season.
Yeah, and if you think of how many games did they play in New Zealand? They played the Hurricanes. They could have won that game. Even the game against the Blues, they could have if they some of their micro skills let them down. I thought it was a pretty good tour, even though they didn't pick up the results in New Zealand. But I just think they're I think they're not a bad sort of side. They've got some really, really good players. Delando's seems to be playing really, really good football at the moment. They've also got the Springbok captain who Khaleesi plays for them.
Yeah, but
as
then
well, and
he rested
travelling well.
He got rested against the Rebels, and they won. I mean, what was going on? Okay, I mean, whilst I'm
I've got to
beating up,
jump in there. No, I think one of the issues I got is Delende in the midfield. I think he seriously he's like a horse that's got blinkers on. He really does struggle to see his outside and feed them. And he tucks it up and he goes forward when there's a massive overlap for outside. So I think that's the big issue. And I think, Steve, you mentioned against the Blues, there are a couple of times when against the Blues he should have freed the ball when it was on out wide, and instead he took it into contact in midfield.
You're right. I mean, boys, we're running out of time, so a couple of things I do want to cover off on. Congratulations to Jed Brown on his debut for the Blues. He is the 300th player for the Blues. We talked a couple of weeks ago about the fact that they'd reached 299. So congratulations to him to being number 300. He will. No one can take that away from him. And if you're going to, I think, try of the round, we talked about it briefly, probably actually pre-show rather than actually during the show. But what I know it was a forward pass or whatever, maybe not, Arshwin. But just for the skills of the clip up by Wainui off his heel to heel the ball up into his hands, I think that's going to be try of the round, surely.
It's up there in terms. It's freakish.
It was brilliant. Yeah.
That was freakish still. I mean, so that. Well, I'll quickly touch on that Blues Chiefs game. Listen, as a spectacle, I think that was probably close to the best Super Rugby game in the season. I think it may have even superseded the previous week when the Highlanders took on the Hurricanes, which was a really good game as well. But I think this one, in terms of skill, some of the amazing finishing, some of the hits, and some of the offloads by the forwards. Some nice little touches from Big Carl there to Patrick Tuipulotu, who offloads, just really, really cool. A real high-skill game. And as I think the commentator, Ken Laban, said, you hate to see a loser in a game like that, but there's always got to be one. I just think it was a really good, good game for Super Rugby. Some
of that forward interaction that you're referring to, Steve, you don't actually pick up during the game. It's only later on when they show replays from different angles in slow-mo that you actually realise, holy crap, did he pass? What a pass, sort of thing. So, like that one, the passage that you're referring to, when I watched it live and they scored the try, I was like, oh, yeah, they got the ball out. But it wasn't until you saw the replays that you saw the hands and some of the passes that you go, oh, crap, that was insane.
Yeah, something we quickly touched on. I'll make it really, really quick. We all know what a wonderful official Angus Gardner is, but once again, we touched upon it before. Just some of the stuff on the ground. If you're on the ground, you're out of the game. And probably it was a common theme also for Friday night, the Crusaders Highlanders game as well. Convincing win at the end of the day for the Crusaders, but they certainly don't need any help from the official.
No, absolutely. I mean, we've gone through the kind of the referee thing already, I think earlier on. So looking forward rather than backwards, Ashwin, I'll give you first bites at the cherry. Which game are you looking forward to most this weekend?
Oh, sort of looking. It's just like the effectively you got a top of the table clash there in the Waratahs and Rebels, haven't you? That's wow. And after the Rebels, after the Rebels.
Hang on, here we are picking a Aussie derby. For game of the week, this is got to be a first. Wow!
You have to. I mean, if you actually look at the standings, like not just you look at the African Conference. There's one game, sort of from last to first, the points difference. And you go to the Australian one. There's a bigger gap there, obviously, but it's tight stuff. It's tight stuff, and you look at that game, it's just like it could have quite a big bearing on the rest of the season. The Rebels really have to get back on the horse after losing to the Stormers.
The hot topic we've not talked about this week is obviously the Folau thing, purely because I think it's been overdone. I think it's been covered plenty enough elsewhere that we don't need to talk about it. But in relation to this game, you got to wonder as to what the Waratahs preparation has been like this week with all that distraction off the field as well.
Okay, so I think the preparation aside, Paul, when you look at the Waratahs when they played the Blues, they had one game plan when they came to Eden Park.
Yeah,
kick the ball to Falau, and because of that game plan,
it was good.
It was a good game. It worked. It worked for them brilliantly. But one thing it also did for them is it actually opened up space in the rest of the field because the Blues had to go cover Falau so much. It wasn't just one-on-one type cover for Falau. That meant that there was other space in and around, whether it's behind, around the ruck. It changed the way that the Blues had to defend, and it had opened up for the Waratahs. Now you haven't got a Falau that you have to watch out for in the air. They might try and put someone up there, but nobody's going to have that aerial ability of a Falau.
Yeah, and it's one of those things we've said before about someone like Pocock, is there are very, very few players in the world that change how you have that are so good that change how you have to play. And as you're pointing out there that Falau was one of those guys who used to who could do that or can do that.
Yep.
So that is really a big an arrow or a string from their bow missing. Come the Rebels.
I said it's been thrashed out all over the place. But one thing I haven't heard for initially when this all came up, the Players Association in Australia was supporting Israel Folau. I haven't heard lately from them.
Not sure they actually said they were supporting him. I think they said that they attended the meeting with him rather than necessarily backing him for what he did. If you see what I mean.
No, not backing him. No, not backing him for what he says. It's basically staying neutral in that sort of area. Yeah. The fact is that effectively the Players Association is a union for players.
Yeah.
So if you're a paid up member, you have to. They have to go in there and support you in any sort of
in a legal sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I haven't heard anything where that's at. If that's still there, I'd assume that it is.
I'd assume he's getting legal representation from them, and they're advising him because he still has another 24 hours to appeal. The sanctions. So that story isn't done by any stretch of the imagination yet.
Oh, not.
So Stephen, game of the week, or game that you're most looking forward to?
Well, I just want the Blues just to crack this horrible record that they've got of not having beaten the New Zealand side away, and I don't think the opportunity is going to. I don't think you're going to get an opportunity in this. You got a Highlander side that might be a little bit low on confidence. Got a few injuries. I know they'll put up a hell of a fight. They'll probably want to redeem last Friday night. Because they got touched up pretty badly by the Crusaders, but. If the Blues are to make a statement in this competition, they have got to win on Saturday night.
They have to show.
When you say a few players, I mean we're talking key players missing from the Highlanders as well. We're not talking just any old injuries here.
Oh, absolutely. They got some
Squire and Smith.
Well, Squire, Smith, Whitelock, Marty Banks. You're losing your 6, 8, 9, 10. Sorry, I cut you off.
It's funny, and it's funny, when all of a sudden results don't go your way, it's easy to see. It just basically compounds, doesn't it, guys? Everything you look back to last Friday night, Highlanders started really well, but everything that could go wrong did go wrong.
Yep, and the thing is that I was also thinking that, anytime it's starting. With those big teams, you go up to play them, you get bashed up as well. So, there's going to be an element of soreness after playing a big game like that, and Blues will have that as well against the Chiefs as well. And the fact that who's recovered the best after the two big games that they both played last week.
Yeah, so for just as a kind of reminder, so the Blues won 4 on the trot at home, then lost away to the Chiefs, whereas the Highlanders haven't won their opening 2 games and haven't won since then. So the Blues are in a better vein of form, even if both sides did slip up last weekend.
But if the Blues don't win this weekend, then the voices in their heads return.
Totally. Yeah, you're right.
Because this is whatever. I don't care what the TAB will put up. They'll probably put the Highlanders as favourites. But the Blues have to go are the favourites logically. They're the stronger team and in the better position.
So you can check out my predictions on online at drivingmaul.com. My predictions are already out there. For this weekend.
What are you going to say? You had this, Steve?
I was going to say the other thing to take into account for the Blues, I think they've only got 2 home games to go, if I understand to be corrected. And I think somewhere in those games there's a whole lot of New Zealand derbies to be played as well.
Yep.
Including the Crusaders away and the Hurricanes away, as well as the Highlanders this weekend.
So quickly,
sorry, go
on.
They got Hurricanes, Chiefs, and Bulls at home.
Yep. So quickly, the other games in Super Rugby are the Chiefs, Lions, Sunwolves, Hurricanes, Sharks, Reds, and the Stormers, Brumbies. Now, I'm going to go outside of this and head over to Europe for my game of the week. So we've got 2 games over there that I'm thinking of getting up to watch in the early hours. Saracens Munster should be an absolute cracker of a game, being hosted in Coventry, because you get home country, not home ground advantage. So that one should be a cracker. The other one that should be good is Leinster versus Toulouse at I was going to say Croke Park, but of course it's not, at Lansdowne Road as well. But that Saracens Munster one really should be a cracking game. I'm thinking about doing post-match reaction to both those games, as well as the Chiefs Lions and the Highlanders Blues, as I normally do on a Saturday and Friday and Saturday evening.
Paul, just before you close off, mate, I have to mention the Newcastle Leicester game. Absolutely got up to watch it last Saturday morning. Absolutely brilliant game. Leicester, I don't know how they won that game, because Newcastle were basically all over it. But once again, it's that table in the Premiership right at the bottom is starting to look interesting, but probably not so good for Newcastle. They are 7 points. Yeah, 7 points of drop.
It's all over, isn't it? I can't.
Yeah, it's probably all over. They're probably going to go down.
Yeah. I think that's basically that's the end of the I've gone blank. The Falcons, unfortunately, for that one. Newcastle Falcons, by the way, for those of you who are wondering about it, we just changed namings conventions. Anyway, just for those quickly, I'll just quickly share my screen so you can see the table. There you go. Newcastle down at the bottom on 30 points with 3 games to go. 7 points behind Worcester, 8 points behind Leicester. If they'd won that game, they would have been within 4 points of Leicester, which would have been a totally different ball game. So it all looks, it's looking very bad for them down there. So Pierce, that is harsh, really harsh there by Pierce Makaloa. Falcons gear will be on sale soon. Dear me.
Oh no.
Oh, you mean man, Pierce. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me again this evening, gentlemen, Ashwin and Stephen. Hopefully you're both back to talk tomorrow night on the All Blacks edition, where obviously Damon McKenzie will be a topic of conversation, and Marcy McKenzie might also. Who knows? As usual, up there to subscribe to the channel. Down there is a link to Patreon. How you become a supporter of the channel, how we can bring all this content to you for free, is because at the moment we do it and we go hungry. Or I do anyway. Those two, actually no, so does Ashwin. Ashwin also goes hungry as well. So he's also not got a job. Over there are two screens that give you links to very videos you might enjoy. And actually, a little thing here. If you'd like to know the story behind this hat here, I could come and talk to your company about personal branding. So you fancy that idea? Drop me a line.